Okay, so now we're going to make our interior zipper pocket. So retrieving our interior zipper pocket facing, on the wrong side, on the back, we're going to mark the location of our window for our zipper pocket. Now we'll just mark the halfway point so we get this box evenly placed. Now 1 inch down, we're going to draw a line that is 8 1/4 inch long, or 21 centimeters. So that's 4 1/8 either side of that line. Same on this side. And then match them up. Now we'll go down 3/8 of an inch. Draw a line the same length, 8 1/4 inch or 21 centimeters. Now we're going to draw a line in the center of that. I'm just eyeballing it, it doesn't have to be exact, but we're just going to go back a little bit. This is just a guideline where we're going to cut later. Like that. Retrieving your lining panel, we're going to center this facing 4 centimeters or 1 1/2 inches down from the top raw edge. Mark my center so it makes it easier. So 1 1/2 inches down. Just going to line that up there and pin in place. Now with that pinned in place, we're going to go and stitch the top and bottom lines only. So now we're going to stitch our facing in place so that we can create our window for our zipper. So I'm just going to start right on the point, looking in here so I can line my needle up accurately. Back stitch to secure. Want to end in the right place, so just check. Now repeat for the second side. Like that. Okay, so now that we have stitched our window into place, we need to grab our cutting device, our rotary cutter, or you can use scissors, and we're just going to slice a hole down the center here on the line we drew before, like that. And now grabbing a pointy scissors, I've just got this one handy so I'll use it. We're just going to finish off by clipping in as close as we can to the thread without actually cutting the stitch right to that corner. We don't want to cut the stitches, but if you do, don't panic. Just go back and re-stitch to fasten it back into place. I sliced a bit extra there, didn't I? Nip that off. Now just nip in on the second side. Like that. Now we're going to press our pocket one way and then that way, like that. So I'll just grab my, just press to one side and to the other, And now what I'm going to do is just going to mark 6mm or 1/4 inch back from this point. You can measure it or eyeball it, doesn't really matter, it doesn't have to be exact. Do that on both sides. Like so. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch right next to the seam line right there, and same on this side, right down there. So now I'm going to stitch right next to the seam on either side of the facing and on either side of the pocket window. And I'm going to stitch very close to the seam, probably about 2mm or 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to start on the line that I drew before, that little 1/4 inch mark. I'm going to use a top stitch length of 3.2. Not critical that you stop and start exactly on that line for this. Now do the other side. Make sure you flip this out of the way so that it's laying the other direction and doesn't get caught in your stitching. Like that. Now that we've done that, we need to turn our facing through to the wrong side. I just like to finger press that to start with, just to get it into the right spot. Now if you have some fray stopper, I do recommend putting a little bit of fray stopper at each corner, but I am out of it at the moment. And then we're just going to grab our iron and press. Press from both sides. If you see any pulling at the corners, it could be that you have not clipped close enough to your corner stitches. Set that aside for the minute. Grab our interior zipper pocket pieces and our zipper. So now we only need one of the interior zipper pocket pieces at the moment, and I'm just going to cut my zipper to size. First I'm going to cut off these metal bits. Like so. So now what we're going to do is just pop over to the sewing machine and just tack those ends together securely so that the zip pull doesn't come off on us. I'm just do that now. So now I'm just tacking these ends over the top of the zipper so that the zipper tape doesn't come apart and our zipper pull comes off. I'm just doing it approximately 6 millimeters, 1/4 of an inch from the end. Just going back and forth over the top a few times to secure it. I shall do the same on this side. Just going to hold those two bits together, and I'm going to stitch approximately 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch from the end. Just back and forth a couple of times to hold that tape so it doesn't come apart, like so. Now that we have basted the ends of our zippers together, zipper tape, just get rid of these ends, threads. Now taking some double-sided Wonder tape or any other brand that is a wash away tape that doesn't gum up your needles. I once used a cheap tape and it gummed up my machine so bad it froze solid, and it cost me over $100 to get it unjammed. So I learnt my lesson. Remove that, and we're going to grab our zipper and we're going to put it with the pull facing up, so wrong side down onto the right side of the fabric. Press to hold, like so. And now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and baste that on with our zipper foot. Now I'm going to swap to my zipper foot. Need to move my needle over. My stitch length is 2.4 and I'm going to stitch 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch or slightly less, like a scant 6 millimeter 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the zipper tape. Like that. Now we need to press the zipper pocket fabric away from our zipper tape. Retrieve our second zipper pocket piece. Now we're going to run a piece of double-sided tape along the top edge like we did before. Make sure it's stuck down properly. Remove the backing tape. Retrieve your pocket. Now the fabric is right side down, the zipper is wrong side down. Just need to line up the edges and stick it down. Like so. Now we're going to go back over to the sewing machine and stitch a scant 6 millimeter 1/4 an inch from the edge of the zipper tape. Okay, so now we're going to do the second side of our zipper, stitching 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch, a scant 6 millimeters or 1/4 an inch from the edge of the zipper tape. Okay, so now we're going to stitch the second side, 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch, a scant 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the zipper tape. Like that. So now we need to press our zipper pocket piece away from the zipper. really need to clean the bottom of my eye and I'm getting dirt on there. Okay, like that. Grab your lining with the zipper pocket window. Run some double-sided tape along the top and bottom edge. Like so. Now retrieving your pocket piece that you've made before. We're going to put the zipper pull on the left, but if you want your zipper to open from right to left instead of left to right, then you can reverse it around. That is entirely up to you. There's no right and wrong way. You do whichever way you like to. Just line up these side edges. Centering that zipper in the middle. I'm trying to keep my head out of the video. Just going to firmly press that into place. Once you're happy with how that is sitting, just grab a pin and put one at the top and one down the bottom just to hold that and stop it from getting into your stitching. And now we're going back over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch all the way around our pocket window. So now we're going to top stitch around the zipper window with our zipper foot, top stitch length of 3.3. Just going to start in back here a bit, stitching approximately 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the zipper pocket window. Just make sure you pull long enough piece of tail out so that we can pull these threads back to the wrong side and tie them off after we have stitched our window. I like to back stitch across it to make sure it's got plenty of strength. Just going to do this manually so that I get it in the right spot. Now we're going to want to end up right back in that same hole. So we're going to manually place our stitch. Now just bring your needle back up. Leave a long tail like that. Now what we need to do is flip that over. I'm just going to pull the threads through. Just going to tie them off. Now I'm just going to get a sewing needle and I'm going to thread them through to the underside of the pocket. So now I'm just going to get these threads and thread them through to the other side, the wrong side. Just remove those two pins. Cutting them off at the same length so I can do two at a time. Like this. Do the same with the other two. going to knot that off at the back. A few times and snip. Smooth that down. Okay, so now we're just going to trim this off so they're level. Like so. Now, because we're going to be closing the lining through the bottom of our pocket, we're going to not stitch this bottom end closed. Instead, we're turning up the seam allowance. You can press with an iron or do it the lazy man's way like me and use some double-sided tape. So, now flip it over. Now we're going to be stitching down each side, so we'll just flip it over to the right side and pin. Oh, there's a couple of pins there. Before I forget, you can also chop off this extra, or some of it, extra seam facing there. We don't need all of that there. I just like to layer it a bit so we don't end up with it all in one pile. And now I'm just going to grab a clip that to the center. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch down both sides. We're also going to stitch those little V's there right close to the pocket. So now we're stitching with a stitch length of 2.4 and a seam of 1 centimetre 3/8 of an inch, like always, or usual. Stitching the second side. So now we're going to stitch the little V's at the side. We're going to stitch as close as we can to the fabric of the pocket without actually catching it and stitching into it. I'm just going to stitch back and forth a couple of times just to make that end of the pocket really secure. I'm going to do that on this side as well. Like that. So that's the little V's. So now we need to grab our slip pockets and our other body lining piece. Just going to grab these slip pockets and put them right sides together like that, and we're going to stitch the top and bottom edges. So we'll just pin or clip that to hold. We're not stitching the sides, only the top and bottom. Like so. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch the top and the bottom with our regular seam allowance. So now I'm stitching with a stitch length of 2.4, just at my regular seam allowance of 1 centimetre 3/8 of an inch. And the other end. Like that. Now we'll turn that right side out. Like so. And now putting that right at the top and right at the bottom. And press. Like that. Now we're just going to baste these side edges together at the sewing machine. Just going to baste down there and baste down there, and then we're going to top stitch along the top edge, 3 millimeters 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Okay, so now we're going to baste the side edges of our pocket together using a 3 millimeter 1/8 of an inch seam. Doesn't really matter about the stitch length for this. And it doesn't matter if you're not exactly 3 millimeter 1/8 of an inch either, because as long as you are less than 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch of your normal seam allowance, you'll be fine. Okay, so now I'm going to top stitch 3 millimeters 1/8 of an inch from the top edge using a stitch length of 3.3. Like that. Okay, so now grab your second lining piece, and we're just going to find the point where the side edges meet and they're even. Grab some pins, pin to hold. Now we're going back over to the sewing machine and we're going to baste the two sides together. So now we're going to baste the pocket in place using a 3 millimeter 1/8 of an inch seam. Stitch length is not important here. so. And now we're going to stitch the bottom of our pocket in place using a 3mm 1/8 of an inch seam. And top stitch length of 3.3. Like that. So now we're going to divide our pocket up, and we're going to measure in 12 centimeters from the side and make a mark. And down the bottom we're going to go 16.2 centimeters in side, and then we're going to draw a line. And my stripes aren't very straight. I should have made that a little bit better. Anyway, we're going to put this, make a pen pocket here. So we're going to mark in 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch from the first line, and draw a line down there, like so, to divide the pocket up, or you can obviously divide it up however you choose. So now I'm just going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch those 2 lines there. So now I'm going to top stitch my pocket. I'm going to start at the top edge on one side, and I'm going to use a stitch length of 3.3, and I'm just going to do a few back tack stitches here, several, because this is a high stretch area, and I'm just going to stitch down to the bottom. Back stitch there. I'm going to do the same on the second line. Okay, so if you check what length your pen is, and then draw a line across the pen pocket. This will stop your pen from disappearing inside the pocket. Mine's going to be 1.75 inches up. I'm just going to stitch across that line. So now I'm stitching across my line just to close off my pen pocket so that I don't have my pen disappear down inside my pocket. And we're going to grab our gusset lining. We need to put it right sides together, and we're stitching the end where it says stitch your gusset pieces together at this end. So we'll put that right sides together, and I shall put a couple of clips or pins in to hold. And now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch. Okay, so now we're going to stitch using a stitch length of 2.4 and our seam allowance of 1 centimeter 3/8 of an inch. Oops, didn't reverse up. Odd. Okay, so now that we have stitched the bottom seam of our gusset, we need to press the seam open. So now grab the lining with the slip pocket attached, and we'll just fold in half and press a crease. I mark it with my pen so it's easier to see. Like that. Now with your gusset right side to your body, we're going to pin in place. Or you can use clips if you prefer. Start by matching the bottom seam and then the top two sides. And now we'll pin in place all the way around. Now you might find it easier to put a few little snips into the seam allowance at the curves, just for about 1/4 of an inch, 6 millimeters or so in. I don't know if my camera's picking it up, but the dog is snoring in the background. Now we're just going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch all the way around our body. Okay, so now we're going to stitch our gusset in place all the way around, and using a stitch length of 2.4, normal seam allowance of 1 centimetre. You do not need to take a wider seam allowance in most of my patterns, not unless otherwise specified, because I make my lining pieces smaller to fit. It's only the time that you might need to adjust the lining is if you use different fabrics than what I specify in the pattern, or different interfacings, because that can create a different fit with your lining and you may need to adjust in those circumstances. Stuff on my desk. Okay, now we need to grab our pinking shears, or if you don't use pinking shears, you'll need to notch into this curves. Scissors could do with a sharpen, like that. Okay, so here I am again. I tried to do this once already, but the camera battery went flat and I lost everything I did, so I am back again to try again. So retrieve your second body lining piece, the one with the zipper attached. We're going to add this right sides together, line up that bottom seam with the bottom of your gusset. We're just going to clip this to hold while we pin the rest of it, or you can use clips if you want to, but I prefer to pin. But we're going to leave from that mark there, because I've left a gap of 11 inches, so that when we turn through this gap and then stitch it closed through the bottom of our zipper pocket. So 11 inches, 28 centimetres. So we're leaving a gap of 28 centimetres or 11 inches there for turning. Now let's start pinning. Pin both top corners. As you can see, I've already snipped into my seam allowance last time. So 6 millimetres, quarter of an inch or so. Just going to stitch to this point here. I'm just going to put 2 pins in to remind me that I have to stop stitching when I get to there. Otherwise I have a habit of just continuing on stitching and forgetting to leave my opening. Okay, go around here. I haven't snipped this side yet. And now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch around from those 2 double pins all the way back to the top each side, and we're going to leave this bottom edge open. So leave that open. I'm just going to put a pin in here just to keep this. Actually, a big clip would do. Yeah, like that. Now we're stitching stitch length of 2.4, seam width of 1 centimetre, 3/8 of an inch. Smooth it out underneath, make sure everything sits right. And when we get to our double pins, we're just going to back stitch a couple of times, keep that nice and secure. Now go across to the second side. Get everything out of the way. Starting at our double pins. Stitch a couple of times. Like that. And we've got that bottom open. Okay, so grabbing your pinking shears, I'm just going to do some trimming again. Okay, so now with your lining the wrong side out, retrieve your body, and with the body right side out and your lining wrong side out, we're going to put the body down into this lining. You can choose here whether you want your zipper pocket at the front or the zipper pocket at the back. I'm just going to put it towards the front. I'm just going to push this inside here. And yes, it's a little bit of a squishle wishle, call it what you will. Kind of pull it out the bottom a little bit so you can get it down there. You're going to line up with your rectangular ring strap tabs down in your bag and your flaps down in the between the layers. Going to use some clips, lining up these side seams, and clip to hold. Do the other side as well, just a little bit of pulling and shoving to make it fall into place. Now maneuver that down into there, just wiggle it about until it fits and clip. Same on this side. The bent body inside is tending to want to push it out of shape, but there. And you have that all clipped into place. We're going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch all the way around our bag. add a few extra clips here. Can't have too many clips. I'm going to go and stitch all the way around the bag. Okay, so I'm just going to remove my flatbed. This is going to be a little bit fiddly getting this under here. I'm just starting in the center of one side, doesn't matter which side. Maneuver that up to the machine till you've got your 3/8 of an inch, 1 centimeter seam allowance. And we're stitching with a stitch length of 2.6, 1 centimeter seam allowance. And away we go. Stitching it at a little bit longer stitch length because of the foam, so it's 2.6 instead of my usual 2.4. Need my hump jumper here. Put that underneath the back of my foot. And just take your time over these thick bits. It's not a race. And if you haven't changed to a new needle in a while, now's a good time to do it. Fell off. Now inspect your seam to see if there's any areas where you might want to fix. What we need to do now is we're just going to stitch some extra stitches to make this strap tabs more secure. If you have zigzag, you can use zigzag, or you can just use your straight stitch, doesn't really matter. You just want to get some strength in here. Doing that will flatten the foam at the back as well, like that. Okay, so I've removed as much foam as I can out of this top seam. It's too fiddly to be too fussy, so I've just done what I could without tearing my hair out. So now I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to zigzag around the top edge of this just to flatten the rest of the foam that is left in those seams. Okay, so now I'm going to zigzag this seam so that I can flatten as much foam as I can what's left, because it's too hard to cut it all out. Don't need to go over the other side a second time, it's just mainly this flap side. There, that feels a fair bit thinner than what it was now that it's all zigzagged down. Okay, so now it comes time to turn this the right way out. So all we need to do is bring this lining back up over the top of our body gently so we don't tear the lining. But it's really quite easy compared to some methods. Like that. Now we're going to just poke that down in there just for a minute. And what we're going to do is we're going to reach down into our zipper pocket. So I've opened my zipper pocket. I'm grabbing the bottom of my lining, which I'm now going to pull out through my zipper pocket. So this is the bottom, the lining of the bag, not the zipper pocket. That's the zipper pocket there. And this is the bottom of our bag lining, which we're bringing right out. And now we're going to pin that together and stitch it. So now that we've pinned that lining, see, there's your zipper pocket. My double-sided tape has not held very well. And we will go over to the sewing machine and we will stitch that seam. So now we'll turn back to straight stitch and we're going to start right there where we left off before when we stitched our lining. Back a little bit even. Stitch length of 2.4. Normal seam allowance of 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimetre. So now with our lining pushed down in there, we just put your arm through your open zipper pocket and make sure everything is pushed out like it's supposed to be. And now I'll just shove everything down in there for the minute, and we're going to use our fingers to manipulate this top seam. Now this is really thick here, so we're going to get the hammer and we're going to give that a few good wallops on a hard surface. Now don't be afraid to give that a really good pounding, because you really need to flatten that well, especially if you're using a domestic machine. And the same on this point here and this point here. There's 2 more points under there that I need to hammer, so find those points and wallop them as well. It's on the other where those piping. Okay, when you're finished giving that a good wallop, you need to use your fingers to roll this top down. Now I find it a good idea to put in a few pins here and there just to make it smooth down. And you'll be surprised what difference that makes, just pounding that down. Makes it easy to sew. Just pull that down. And pin well down so that when you're stitching around, because we'll be stitching from that side, you don't want to hit your pins. So make sure the pins are well down. And we'll do the same here on this one here. I'll pin from the outside. Just smooth it down on the inside with my fingers and pin there. Okay, so now that we have done that, we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch around this top edge. There. Now we can go and remove our pins and stitch up the bottom of our zipper pocket. And now that we've done around the top of our bag, we need to pull out our zipper pocket. Repress those seams back under again. And we're going to match up the edges. Actually, I like to clip a little bit of this corner out just to remove some of the bulk. Like that. And then match up the edges. Pin or clip to hold. And now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch that seam. Now I'm going to stitch pretty close to the edge with a top stitch length of 3.2. Trying to keep the edges together so that I don't end up with a hole in the bottom of my zipper pocket. Pick that up. And there we have our stitched zipper pocket. Now that we have stitched the bottom of our zipper pocket closed, poke that down in there, shove those corners out, smooth it all down, smooth the lining down, like so. And now, how's that? It's starting to look like a bag. Now, I'm going to finish off our strap. We're going to make an adjustable strap. Grabbing our webbing, which I have all tangled. Now, where is my slider? Grabbing your lighter, just singe the ends, both ends. So once you've singed the ends of your strap, I'm just going to draw some boxes on here. I'll just do this one. Now, using a chalk marker or fading marker, if you've got a lighter coloured strap, it's a little bit easier. But we're just going to draw a box on here. Just so you can see where I'm going to stitch. And you can do this on yours, so it makes it easier to see where you're going to stitch. Grab your slider, put it wrong side up, and take the wrong side of your webbing through, out the other side, like so, and pull it through. So you can see your box there. Now that's pulled through about 1 3/4 of an inch, but just do whatever you feel comfortable with. Grab a clip and clip that together to hold it while we go over to the sewing machine, and we're going to stitch that on. Okay, I'm swapping to a zipper foot so I can get closer to my hardware. Just trying to figure out how you best can see this. Now I'm going to move my needle right over. I'm starting in the middle of the strap because that will hold it better so it doesn't slip to the side. Holding the tail so I don't get a nest. To stitch down here. Back up here. And then I can stitch across here because I can get easier to my closer to my hardware. Just go back and forth a couple of times. And you probably can't see it, but there's my rectangular box. And it's probably good if you can't see it, then I don't see any wonky stitches. So now I find the wrong side of my webbing, pull that through. And we're threading it wrong side through there and pulling it through, so we have the wrong side of our slider. Pull that through like that and put the other end through, up and over the bar and through like that. So you can see there, like that. The wrong sides are together in there. And then we need to bring that back around through our slider, and we're going to stitch there. But before we do that, we're going to draw a box on the right side. Just a 1-inch box like we did before. Now bring that through, so like the wrong side together again, like that. Pull it through about the same distance as your other one. Real technical measurements here. And now we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch that in place. Now this is a little bit more awkward because you've got a bag attached to it, but it's still doable. Start in the middle. And there we now have our strap attached to our bags. So now it's time to do some pressing and just finishing it off. This tends to roll in a bit here, so what we need to do is, it's the foam causing that, so on a hard surface just go and wallop gently, or not so gently. Give it a few good whacks along this edge here, and then we'll come back and we'll do some pressing all the way around there. So I've whacked all the way around there. I've got a heap of threads everywhere. Look at them. I think you can see that that's already sort of sitting better. Pressing ham is down at the house, so instead I am going to use this towel. Going to roll it up, pop it in there, and you're happy, and there you have finished your bag. So there you have it. That's Genevieve. I hope you've enjoyed this video, whether you've sewn along with me or just watched it out of curiosity. And if you'd like to email me some of your photos, I love seeing them, so email them to christine@chriswdesigns.com. If you'd like to see any more of my patterns, I have a heap available at www.chriswdesigns.com, and for the Aussies, head to www.chriswdesigns.com.au. I hope you will subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on that bell to be notified of any new releases. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Catch you later.